Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Harne podcast. Today, we talk about marketing, and to talk about it, we have with us Harsimran Bhamra. She is a lifecycle marketing specialist at Borrowell in Toronto. Simran shares her journey from being a chemical engineer in India to a marketer here in Toronto, her insights along the journey, and how you can make that switch into marketing. Now, before we start, let me take a moment to ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment down below. Now, sit back and relax as the episode with Simran begins now. Thank you so much, Simran, for doing this. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you have fun recording this. You are my first female guest on the podcast, so I'm very
I,
excited to do this.
I am honored, excited, and nervous. It's like this feeling. I don't know what your expectations are from me, but I will try to deliver.
The expectation is just to tell your story to the world and how you can help others with the experience which you
For
got at
sure.
Schulich. Yeah.
In that case, I'm all prepared.
So, as usual, I ask all my guests to start with telling our listeners, a little bit about themselves. So, if you could do that, please.
For sure. So I'm Simran. I am a Schulich 21 graduate. I currently work with Borrowell as a lifecycle marketing specialist. I know the title sounds fancy. We will get into it a little later. But prior to joining the MBA, I was working with CaratLane, which is an omni-channel jewelry brand back in India, and I did a lot of content marketing for them, lots of promotional stuff. It sounds like I've been in marketing all my life, but I actually am an engineer, a chemical engineer. This is a degree which is just lying somewhere inside, and it's never been used, and I don't think it will be used. So
That
that's
is the case with all the engineering degrees. Most
I
of the students who
think
do
I
an
think
MBA
yeah, I think the whole point of engineering in India right now is to go on this path to figure out what you really want to
want to
do.
do. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So you have an interesting background, and you are one of the few people I know who pursued an engineering and did not go to work for an IT company. Most Indian engineers go decide to work for an IT company straight out of college, but you decided to go into marketing. So what made you do that?
That's a fabulous question. So this is like my engineering 4 years, the standard one that we have in India.
Yeah.
So halfway through my engineering, I realized that I really enjoyed writing. So what I started doing was I started freelancing for some clients. I would write some blogs for them, sometimes handle their social media, and I also started writing for myself. So I did some
Okay.
pieces, some poetry, and finally, in my last year of engineering, I started my own blog. So I really found this flair for writing and it gave me a lot of joy. And while all of this was going on, as a studious person, I had taken my GRE, my TOEFL. I was all set to pursue my master's in nanotechnology from US. Raghav, I had a list of universities jot down as well. Okay.
Okay.
And one fine day, I have these guests who come over at my place. My mom's entertaining them. My dad's on a call with me. Excuse me. And I'm telling my dad, I know masters and all is good, but I think maybe I want to take some time off to do marketing. And my mom, she's entertaining the guests. She suddenly looks at me. She gives me the look like, what is wrong with you? Did you just wake up right now? And I'm just like, I'll get to it. Please just let me explain. So my parents had the faith in me, fortunately, and I decided to give writing and marketing a shot. So I thought, in the worst case, if I don't enjoy it for another year, I can always go back, do my master's because my scores would still be valid. And once I started marketing, there was no way I could stop. So I started working with CaratLane at back then as an intern, and I made my way all the way to a senior exec by the time I left. So that's what my venture into marketing looks like.
That's a great story. I would have loved to be the guest your mom was entertaining while you told her that, I want to pursue marketing instead of doing my nanotechnology MS and all. So that's a great story.
It is. And I honestly don't know how my parents had that faith in me because, we had a plan and it's like so difficult for Asian parents to, digress from a plan because they're all like, okay, so she's going to go this year. She's going to go to this university. And I'm like, maybe not. So
No, but
Yeah.
that also takes a lot of courage because you need to have that emotional attachment to your work. And you
Yeah.
were bold enough to explore that. You thought that maybe I am not having that emotional attachment with the masters you are about to pursue,
Yeah.
but I am enjoying and I have an emotional attachment with the marketing work which I am doing. So obviously,
Absolutely.
your parents are fabulous that they supported you in it, but you also took a very bold decision of actually pursuing what you were finding up to your liking. Yeah.
Yeah, because the fun part is I did this one internship, which was when I was moving from my third year into my fourth year, which
Yeah.
was a typical chemical engineering internship. I had to go to a process plant in the outskirts of Mumbai. So I come from Mumbai, so there aren't a lot of plants within Mumbai, of course. So there was one on the outskirts. I traveled like 1.5 hours to get there. Day one over there, Raghav, I came back home and I'm like, I don't think this is the right thing for me at all because it's standing all day, it's mixing chemicals and it's enjoyable for sure. Like I enjoyed some pieces of it, but do I want to do this every day for the rest of my life? Do I see that? And it was just a big no. So that way, an internship really helped me figure out what I don't want to do, which is also an important knowledge piece, I feel.
Absolutely. And I think, especially during your MBA, if you're not sure as to which domain you want to go into, internships are a great way to finding out whether you like the
Yeah,
particular field or not.
absolutely.
So, yeah, with that being said, most people in India, I don't know about the world, but in India, the scene is when they think of marketing, they think of advertising. Marketing is advertising. So, can you please, for our listeners, distinguish marketing and advertising?
Oh, that's great. I love that you brought this up. So, advertising is actually just a tiny subset of marketing. Marketing is so much more. It's the overall strategy. It's about who do you want to target? What do you want to target them with? How are you reaching out to them? Whether it's through emails, whether it's SMSs, whether it's stores, because based on who your target audience is, the way you reach out to them is going to be different. And finally, there is that piece about advertising which comes in, which is how you're going to speak to them, how you're going to speak to them in a way that resonates with them and it makes them feel like this product or this service is right for you. So advertising is just a part of marketing. It's not the whole and soul. Like marketing is so vast. And this is something that a lot of people, including myself, realized when I came here to do my MBA, that once you really start looking at the different domains that exist in marketing, you're going to feel like, holy crap, like how do I proceed, right? Like what do I do next? So advertising, tiny piece.
Okay. And were you interested in which, like you said, there are different aspects to marketing. So, which aspect were you interested in when you decided that you want to go into marketing? Was it advertising? Was it something else? What was it?
So when I started off my MBA, like every marketing student who gets into an MBA, everybody wants to become an associate brand manager at a
Yeah.
CPG company. I,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure, although you're not into marketing, Raghav, you've heard this dream from everybody.
Yeah.
But I came in with that, and I
Mhm.
also thought that because I have flair for some content, because I'd done that work previously, and I really enjoyed creating content,
Yeah.
maybe I could get into content marketing.
Mhm.
And just by talking to a lot of people, figuring out what the landscape is like in Canada, and also realizing where career growth can take me, I realized that, content's great, but maybe I just don't want to do that anymore. So the biggest piece for me was actually just keeping an open mind. And a lot of people that I spoke to told me that, Sim, whatever happens, just make sure you keep your mind open because that's the only way you're going to learn, right? And with marketing, or in fact with any other field, as you have more technology coming in, there are like new roles that are coming up. Frankly, I didn't know my role even existed until I came here and I started working in that role.
Oh,
So there we are.
no, that's very insightful because a lot of technologies, like say for example, cloud technology, which is very popular right now and a hot field to get into, that technology did not exist 10 years ago.
Exactly.
So that you give a very good example that your role existed and you did not know about it before you came over here. And I think Robert Greene says it very well when he says that as you grow up with your body, your mind also gets stiff.
Yes.
So it's very important for you to keep a fluid and a loose mind, keep an open mind so that you are open to possibilities and opportunities. Don't come with a narrow focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
And like this is one thing that I would like to let everybody who's even thinking of pursuing your master's or moving countries, just having an open mind can do so much for you and you have no idea. Like I know this sounds like super generic advice, but when you actually start putting it in action, you really see the difference in your life.
yeah, that's very true. So speaking about changing countries, what made you decide on getting an MBA and that too from Canada and from Schulich?
Ooh, okay. So we all know my story. I'm an engineer. I worked in marketing for 2 years, and I really wanted to make sure that I grow in marketing. And the reality was that I had no formal training in marketing. So it came to a point where I didn't want that lack of formal training to hold me back in any way. Because the people that I was surrounded with, who were VPs, who were CMOs, they were the people who either had MBAs or people who'd studied marketing in some form or the other. So I felt like doing an MBA would be the next natural step for me to make sure that my future is secure, to make sure that when I apply for a marketing job, let's say X years down the line, they cannot reject me saying that, you don't have what we're looking for. And I don't know if you see that right now also in a lot of job descriptions, they ask, MBA is preferred. So I wanted to do everything that I could to make sure that I'm secure. So I knew that I wanted to do my MBA. Now, Canada was a choice because, let's be real, immigration over here was easier than it was in the States.
Correct.
And yeah, and also with the States, if you're not pursuing a STEM course, you have all these other immigration issues that you run into. And
Which course? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
uh,
SEM course? What's that?
STEM, so which is like technology, engineering, those technical fields. If you're
Okay.
doing any of those courses, like a master's in a particular tech field,
Mhm.
you are still guaranteed, X number of years that you can work in the US for. But if you're doing a management course, that does not fall under the STEM category. And then you're just like, oh, what happens if I don't land a job within like X months of graduating? So I wanted to give myself time. So that's when I thought, Canada is going to be the right decision for me. And also Schulich, because it is based in Toronto, which is the reality about Canada is we have like two main cities. It's Vancouver and it's Toronto.
Yeah.
And Toronto is, of course, a lot bigger. So you've got a lot of head offices, you've got a lot of job opportunities that come here. So with a lot of pragmatism, I made Schulich my first choice.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. And I know you have been traveling to USA. You have a mug which says New York. So, for anyone who is listening and thinking about pursuing an MBA right now, so the reason for you to come to Canada was that, as you said, the immigration policies are friendlier over here as compared to US. Is that still the case, or has US relaxed its immigration policies a little?
Oh, that's a tough one. I do know that there have been certain management courses in the US which have some portion of science, tech, engineering, or math in it, like STEM pieces, so that it's easier for you to land a job and stay in the country for longer. But H-1B processes in US still kind of give me jitters. It's a little more complicated. I like my life here. So I would still pick Canada in a blink of an eye for sure.
Sure. No, and that makes sense because like a lot of people, let's be real, US universities are very prestigious and people pursue status. We as humans, everyone pursues a higher status. So
Of
it's
course.
good to, come and say that, brag about it, that I study at such and such university in the US, whereas Canadian universities are not such high status in
That's true.
discussions. But you need to keep that in mind that after your graduation, you need to find a job. And for that, you need to be in the country where you graduated in. So that way, Canada is a much friendlier and a much better option than the US.
That it is. And also when I look at how how easy it was to, get our work permits sorted. Like you and I have been through that journey, right?
Yeah.
Where we all sat together and applied for our work permits, and we all received like a decent number of years that we can work here for. And also, if you decide that you want to become a permanent resident in this country, it's a fairly straightforward process.
Yeah.
We all know how green cards work in the US. So with all that in mind, I am the sort of person who really likes security. So I thought, Canada is the right choice for me.
And I think that's a smart decision you made. So let's talk about then once you selected Schulich, there's always a choice of Schulich India versus the Schulich Kiel campus here in Toronto. So what was your deciding factor to choose Schulich India? And then once you came to the Kiel campus over here, you saw the students and you were all obviously a part of the Schulich India campus. So what differences did you see in the India campus and the Kiel campus?
Okay. So, just like unraveling your question bit by bit, I applied to MBAs when I had only 2 years of experience. So, for an MBA, you need a minimum of 2 years. In fact, there are a lot of universities that wanted me to have 2 years of experience by the time I apply. The reality, though, was when I applied, I had just 1.5 year of experience. So,
Okay.
so I knew when I was applying that there would be a lot of universities that would reject me on the basis of my lack of the experience that they want. So when Schulich asked me that they have an India option as well, I chose the India option merely because it thought it made my chances stronger of getting into a B school. And I didn't feel like waiting another year because I just didn't know if it would make any difference, right? So that's how when they accepted me into the India program, I had like no problems at all. I know there were a lot of people who were like, India cohort, maybe not, we want to go directly to Kiel. But I was just like, that's fine because I've never lived away from my family. So this would have been like a gradual transition for me. So we lived in Hyderabad for like 8 months and then we come to Canada. So there's this gradual transition. It makes change easier. So that was one piece. Now the second part to your question, when I came to Kiel, there is a culture difference, like not gonna lie, you and I both know it, like the India cohort is so tight knit.
Yep.
I have such great friendships with so many people from that cohort. Even today, like they became my support system. So even when we moved from Hyderabad to Canada after our 2 terms there, I felt like I was carrying my support system with me. It was in a way that I'm carrying my family of sorts with me from India to Canada. So that was huge. The other difference in Kiel's favor is there were a lot of club activities. There were a lot more students. It was more participative than what we saw back in India. And I think that also makes sense because over there we are like a tight knit group of 50 people who are waking up to each other every day, going in that bus to the campus, coming back. So it's kind of difficult to do something that carries forward the legacies versus over here with clubs, it's fairly easy because seniors can pass it off to juniors and then the whole thing continues. So those are two differences that I saw primarily.
I think you're absolutely spot on over there. And just on that job experience point which you made, there are a lot of people who think that you need to have a lot of job experience before you even think about doing an MBA. As you are someone who did not even have 2 years of experience while you were applying. So, what would you say to someone who has a fewer years of experience versus and thinking about doing an MBA? Does it really matter in the job hunt? How was your experience like with fewer years of experience?
It kind of worked out in my favor because I know a lot of people who did the MBA, they actually had to take a designation lower than what they were used to back in India when they were working. But for me, I was very fresh into my career. I was just like 1.5 year of experience. I come here, even if I start at an entry level, which I did not though, but even if you do, it's still okay. It's still a step up for you, or if it's equal. But with that being said, there are definitely challenges when it comes to looking for a job if you have lower experience. Because there is one thing, you are competing for entry level roles with the BBS, which
Mhm.
is something that you are kind of overqualified for. but then you have the 3 to 5 years of experience category for which you're slightly underqualified. So you fall into that very unhappy medium where you need to be very, very sure, go through the job description with a fine-tooth comb and find out if this is something that you want to do and if you have the right skills that you can vouch for when you're chosen for an interview, right? So it was a struggle, but I feel like it's very worth it. In fact, I would encourage people to do MBAs at like a younger age, because this is also the age where I learned so much about being empathetic, teamwork, all those soft skills which you've not heard of earlier, which you lack earlier. I think like this is the right age to even develop those.
I think that's a wonderful point, because you make a very good point that people who have more years of experience under the belt, they actually have to sometimes settle for a job that may not be as per their
Expectation.
expectations
Yeah,
when they thought about doing an MBA. But yeah, gradually it works out. But
it
if
does.
you have fewer years of experience, then it's a good age to actually take that risk also, and it actually rewards you, because even if you're going for an entry level position, it's fine, but there's always a chance that you might actually punch higher than your weight and get a job that you could
Exactly.
not even dream about while you
Yeah,
were doing. Yeah.
absolutely. Your point about the risk reward is totally right.
And another point which you made in your answer was that MBA helps you get those soft skills, helps you make more, be more empathetic. So
Yeah.
my next question is along those lines, that if I were to walk into a room which had 40 women and 6 men, which is usually the ratio is the reverse. In MBA classes, the majority is men. I would be terrified walking into that room, and just to even have that initial conversation with somebody would be very difficult. So, what's your perspective on that? Like, how did you manage that, and what can men do to make women feel more comfortable so that they speak up more, especially in a team environment?
Right. Raghav, yeah, we don't bite. If you were to walk into
I,
a room with 40 women, I think it'd be great. But I think that's a very, very important question. So as an engineer in India, you realize that the gender ratio over there is also pretty screwed up. So when I was in my chemical engineering, we were, I want to say like 80 students, and we had like 10 women in that class. And even before my engineering, I was actually prepping for IIT JEE. So I would go to these classes where, again, we were two girls in a batch of like 15, 20. So I had basically been used to this. However, when I came to the MBA, not only was I one of the minorities in the class, but the other fact was also I was like very young. So it was daunting. It was really daunting because leading up to the days to the first class, I was just like, have I made the right decision? Am I going to be able to fit in? There are people with like 10 years of experience. There are people who've already done their masters and this is their second masters. And I'm just going there with 1.5 year of experience. What am I going to even contribute to the class? So there was a lot of second guessing, doubting, but it takes a while to realize that you are here because you are worth it. Everybody over here is at an equal level, and there are certain things that you bring to the table that others don't. And you are just here to complement each other and learn from each other. Um, with the whole men women thing, I've had instances where a lot of people have mansplained. They've treated me as damsel in distress. And I'm sure they mean well. It's just something that happens. It just happens. You don't intend to put somebody down, but it just happens. So I feel like the one thing that everybody can do, it's not limited to like men, women, or any other gender for that matter. It's just being cognizant. Like when somebody is speaking, just give them the basic respect, irrespective of their gender. So if I'm talking to you, I am putting my point forth. Just give me that respect that I know what I'm talking about. And if we just start actively listening to people, I don't think we would need to mansplain or treat somebody as a damsel in distress or anything of that sort. So that's all I could say.
That's really well, because I like how you put that point of irrespective of your gender,
Yeah.
listen to the other person when they're speaking, don't interrupt, let them make their point. And it's also important, like if you don't know anything, put your hand up and say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ask that question and people will be happy to help you. So
Absolutely. And I've been a part of such amazing groups as well in our entire cohort, where I've met some great people who would single me out and ask me, Sim, what do you think about this? And I think that is a fabulous way of just getting buy-in, right? Like if somebody is not speaking up, maybe because they don't think that their voice needs to be heard, or maybe they think that their voice is just not important enough, or anything of that sort, just asking them that, what do you think? Do you have an opinion? I think that's a good way of getting them back into the circle of trust, so to say, because that's how team works, right? You need to have
Correct.
that trust. So that's also another thing that people could do.
And if you don't put your opinion, then you don't complement each other. It's just one person's opinions. And in the advantage of team is that you have different opinions. So it's very
Exactly.
important to take everyone's opinion and listen to it as well. So yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for that. So like you were saying earlier, you were not clear. You wanted to be this high marketing designation which you had in mind before you came into your MBA, but obviously you came in and reality struck. So after that, what was your thought process? What did you think about, I want to go into this domain? How did that happen? Was it organic, or did you decide upon a job role? How did that happen?
Oh, wow. This just brings me back to those days when I was chaos. You have no idea, Raghav, the number of calls I've made to some of our seniors, letting them know that I don't think I can do this. I don't know what I want to do because, like I was telling you earlier, like marketing is vast, right? So I'd done content marketing. I'd done social media marketing for some clients. I could do a lot of writing. I'd done a bit of email marketing as well. So now I have all these little skills under my belt, and I just still didn't know where I want to go. So it was a very confusing period, no doubt. But one thing that really helped me through it all was just talking to people, just like letting myself be vulnerable, right? Telling people that, okay, this is what I've done, I don't know where I want to go ahead, what is your advice? And I especially spoke to people who were from Schulich because they've been on this journey before.
Yeah,
I also spoke to people who were earlier, let's say, social media managers or content managers, and then they broke into maybe brand marketing or some other sort of marketing, to understand their journey and to understand how they thought about the whole thing. Because not only do you have to plan for your next role, but you also need to think about where do you want to be later in
correct.
life, right? It's not just a 1 year gig. This is a lifetime that you're planning for, and that adds a lot more pressure than it should, for sure. So it's just a lot of conversations that I had with a lot of people. And really, the whole idea when I talk about being open minded is this: when people gave me advice, when people told me about their experiences, I really listened to them. I really took their word. I put myself in their shoes, because that was something that I could do and I could learn from them without really having to go on their journey, right? So it was a difficult time. I did like 4 coffee chats a week. I sent out 10 LinkedIn invites a day just to make sure that I had people to talk to, because the more I spoke to them, the more I realized these are the things I want to do and these are the things I don't want to do. The reality, though, is it's going to be easier for you to figure out what you don't want to do. And a lot of people think that, oh, that's not good enough. I feel like that's one of the best knowledge sets to have. I realized early on that social media marketing is just not my thing. I didn't enjoy it. So that was one thing that I could completely stay away from. So I invested my time instead talking to people from other domains. For a while, I was figuring out maybe I want to go into tech companies, maybe I want to go into telcos. So just like shooting out so many LinkedIn invites, that's the key.
Right. And then how did you eventually decide on the job which you have right now, which is a life cycle marketing specialist?
That is completely by fluke.
Okay, I'd love to hear
Yeah.
more about it.
Okay, so you know how LinkedIn has the easy apply thing going on?
Correct.
It was just an easy apply for me because I was also applying to like 5, 7 jobs a day. So there were some which were, you create your resume from scratch and you write a cover letter. The Borrowell one was not that. I looked at the role and I'm just like, okay, this seems interesting. These are the skill sets that I could do. I applied and I am here. But one thing that really goes into it is the fact that the reason I got picked is because my resume was of that level. And I know my resume when I entered the MBA versus my resume in the last month of the MBA. There is a humongous difference. And that difference only comes from talking to people. So every time I had LinkedIn conversations with people, I would send them my resume and I would ask them for their feedback. Some of them have given me such great advice on what should be a part of my resume, what shouldn't. They've given me great advice on how I should even approach people. So when I'm sending out LinkedIn invites, what are the two, three keywords I should be using? What are the sentences I should be using? They've given me advice on what my elevator pitch should sound like based on the person that I'm talking to. So all of that cumulative is what led to that one easy apply, which has me here today. So it sounds like, easy apply works. For some it does, for some it doesn't. But I think it's the journey that one goes through to get there.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because someone might tell you, I did not network. I got this job just through an easy apply, but
Yeah.
it's not so simple. You have to actually go through a whole process before even that easy apply works for you. So
Exactly. Because like when I spoke to people, some people tell me that networking is the only way. Somebody else told me that applying on the company website is the only way. And then I started to realize that maybe their way might not work for me. And I have to create my own way. And the only way to do that is just to make sure that I am putting myself out day in and day out. Even though you're getting rejection emails in your inbox, it's okay. All it takes is one yes.
yeah, I like to say you can have bad luck all your life or through a prolonged period in your life, but good luck has to touch you just once and your life is
Yeah.
transformed.
And I also feel like the harder I keep working, my luck seems to get better. So
Yeah.
maybe there is a correlation there. You never know.
That's true. So you said earlier that your resume when you entered MBA and your resume now, there's a whole lot of a
Yeah.
lot of a difference between the two, because of the skills that you've acquired and because of the growth that you experienced while you were doing your MBA. So what are these skills which you have acquired, and how did you acquire them, and how did they help you in getting the job which you have right now?
I think one of the biggest skill that I've acquired, and this is because of the MBA and also talking to a lot of people, is learning to speak people's language. So it's
Okay.
basically if I'm talking to you right now, Raghav, it's me realizing, this is a give and take, and I need to be actively listening to what you're saying. And secondly, I need to speak to you in a way that appeals to you, that makes sense to you. So, for example, if I am talking to a social media manager, my pitch would include my social media experience and then talk about what else I want from them. If I'm talking to somebody from Schulich, my pitch would include I am also from Schulich, and I did these 2, 3 courses and I see that you've also done them. It's identifying those 2, 3 key points and then speaking to them in a way that makes sense to them. So I think that was like the biggest skill that I didn't even know I needed before I came here.
That's true. And that's a very important tip in networking, because usually how people network is that they send them a cold message saying that I am so and so and I'm looking for such and such job and can you please help me out? But it's very important to find out the commonalities, which you have illustrated very beautifully in your answer earlier, that if you're talking to a social media manager, then you need to illustrate what your experience has been so that you find that commonality and you get that connection, so you have a higher probability of that person accepting your request and then helping you out. That's a very important networking tip, I think.
Exactly. And another tip, if I may add, is this
Yeah,
somebody
sure.
who told me how to really reach out to people. That person told me that always ask for advice, never a job. And I'm telling you, switching that one sentence in my LinkedIn invites has made such a drastic impact in the number of people who accepted my connections. Because I would tell them, hey, I'm XYZ, pursuing my MBA from Schulich. I'm in my final semester. I've done these 2, 3 skill sets, which would change based on who I'm talking to. And then I would just say, if you have 15 minutes, I would just like some career advice from you. And like that, suddenly I was getting like 6, 7 accepts in a day versus 2, 3. And it's like it just doubled. So really, that was like one key tip I think that made my LinkedIn game so much better.
That's very true. Like I was doing a podcast with Mrinal earlier, And
Okay.
he told me the same thing. So he said, like, my experience with networking has been, when you ask for a job, you get advice. And when you ask for advice, you get a job.
Yes. Yes.
So
Medal for the win.
yeah, that, like, he summed it up beautifully. So those are great. So now tell me, what is it that you do as a life cycle marketing specialist? That sounds very fancy, but what is it that a life cycle marketing specialist does?
Okay, so a lifecycle marketing specialist is somebody who takes care of customer journeys. So when you become a customer with my product today, we interact every time you open the app, every time you get an email. We interact, whether you are in the first 30 days of interacting with the product or 2 years later. The way we interact changes from what phase you are in, whether you are a recent acquisition, whether I'm focusing on engaging with you, whether I'm focusing on retaining you and building loyalty. So these are like the two, three main phases of a customer journey. And that's what a lifecycle marketing specialist does. They look at all these different phases, they look at different touch points. What is the best way to reach out to you? Maybe in the first 30 days, you are very interested in the brand. So I don't need to talk to you as much, but I do need to keep checking in with you, let's say once every 2 weeks. But during the engagement phase, I feel like, you're not as engaged with the brand anymore. So I reach out to you more often. So it's also, how do you reach out? How often do you reach out? What the messaging is based on where the person is at that point in their journey. So that is what a lifecycle marketing specialist does. Just making sure that the customer journey at every point is as ideal as you want it to be.
With the end goal being that you retain the customer and
Yes.
build customer loyalty.
Yes.
Yeah. So could you give us an example? Like, you highlighted that the messaging changes with each phase. Like,
Yep.
could you give us an example of how that messaging changes depending on the stage in which the customer is?
For sure. So let's say if you sign up with a product today, you have willingly signed up, which means that you're interested in this product. So my messaging is going to be, welcome to this company, welcome to this organization. We're very happy to have you here. Let's say after being on the product for 2-3 months, you were having certain expectations from the product, but let's say it didn't meet it. If it didn't meet it, then my messaging to you is going to be, hey Raghav, we see that you're not engaging as much. Maybe we offer you an incentive. Maybe I try to upsell you or cross sell you to something else that will benefit you. The flip to this is, maybe you love the product and you've been super engaged, and this is the right opportunity for me to ask for your feedback, ask you to leave a testimonial, ask you to make a social media post, so that I get more customers through word of mouth. So depending on which stage you are in, also how your journey has been like, my messaging is going to change.
Yeah, and that's very important, because I imagine if I am at a stage where I'm not so happy and you ask me to leave a feedback, so that's not
Exactly.
going to be very flattering.
Right, exactly.
So
And if you're not happy, this is also a chance for me to do over, right? A chance for me as a brand to ask you, if you're not happy, how can I help make it better so that you don't have a negative experience? Because Raghav, your negative experience is going to translate into maybe 10 other people's negative experience because you told them that this brand sucks.
yeah. So speaking of brands, I know Borrowell does it quite well. But apart from Borrowell, which are the companies which you think do their marketing really well, and why?
I think I need to give like a big shout out to Dove, because the way they do their campaigns, the way they do their initiatives, I I have rarely seen anybody else do it so well, because everything just aligns so well with their whole concept of like natural beauty and just being yourself. I love that piece. So they done this initiative recently. I think I forget the name. It was basically for young girls, young teenagers who really second guessed how they look because of social media pressures, right? And they came up with the whole initiative of, just do away with the filters. The filters are not you. You are beautiful the way you are. So it just aligns so well with what the brand stands for and what they do. I think they're fabulous.
Like,
It's a
could
beautiful
you
message.
please? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like, could you please elaborate on that? So, how does remove the filters, because you are beautiful
Yeah.
as you are, align with the product, which is a soap? So how did they make that connection? If you could please
That's the
explain that.
fun part, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, now I remember it's called the Self-Esteem Project.
Okay.
So here's the thing about Dove. It's not just about the soap. If you've even seen their bottles, they had their point at one phase where they had like different shaped bottles to celebrate that every size, every body type is beautiful. So,
Oh.
you see, they never talk about their product. They're always talking about that emotion that you as a person, you are beautiful. So now when you have that emotional connection with a brand, guess whose product you're going to be buying when you walk down that aisle. I mean, it's easy.
I don't think it's easy. I mean, it's easy to make the choice of buying that product, but it's not easy to come up with that strategy.
It's not. And the reality is also that they have like years and years of just being consistent with what their brand stands for. Because often what happens is in the face of adversity, most brands they reduce their marketing spend or they change their positioning. And the reality is it takes a while for that consumer to keep seeing your message and build that trust. Dove's been doing this for years. Every campaign that Dove does, in fact, is focused on inner beauty. It's focused on making sure that you as a person feel beautiful. So this consistent messaging, I think it's like really wired in systems now.
Yeah, so that being consistent. So that is so very important for a brand to have that message sent across. So yeah, that's a beautiful example actually. Thank you so much for that. Like now, Simran, you said MBA helped you with your soft skills,
Yes.
and that helped you get that job which you have right now. But apart from the soft skills, are there any hard skills that students need to build in order to go into marketing?
That's a fabulous question because I am someone who had marketing experience even before I came into my MBA, but I still felt like that wasn't enough because when you look at job descriptions, you see that these people want so much more from you, and you have no idea how to deliver, right? But I feel like at the end of the day, if you are open to learning, and I know I've been saying this throughout this conversation, that's one big piece. But the other one is also being adept at understanding numbers. Marketing
Okay.
is very, very data driven. There is not a single decision I make in my everyday life which does not have involvement of data in it. So if I can portray that I understand numbers, I know how to measure impact, I know what marketing KPIs are, I will be good for the job. And one way to find all these, what KPIs you're looking for is by talking to people. It's by making sure you keep educating yourself, sign up to newsletters. So all these kind of pieces also come together in you being that one person who sits and gives an interview.
Okay. And can you deep dive a little on the numbers aspect? You say you should be good at reading numbers, good at
Yes.
reading data. So when you say that, like, what are the rules? Should you be very good at Excel? Should you be good at finance? Like the really granular aspects of the hard skills.
For sure. So honestly, I wasn't good at Excel. Excel is a skill that you can learn. But what you can't learn immediately is understanding numbers. Is 10% good or bad? What do trends look like? What are the industry benchmarks? And all of this only happens when you are really devoted and you're paying attention to not just what you are doing, but also what others are doing. So maybe 10% is great, maybe 10% is crap. You need to understand how to put things into context. You also need to figure out that, okay, if this is 10% today, what will it look like 3 months later when I do XYZ initiatives? So even having that kind of business acumen, I feel is very, very critical. And that is also a skill that I picked up during the MBA.
Thank you so much for that. My next question to you is, you were unsure as to which domain of marketing to get into, but say somebody is not sure whether to go into marketing or not. So
Right.
what is the best way for that person to find out whether marketing will be a good fit?
So this ties back to your one of the few first questions that you asked me. A lot of people think that advertising is marketing, and you need to know that it's not. That's step number one. The
Okay.
second step is, because marketing is so vast. There's social media, there's content, there's paid ads, there's brand marketing, and I could go on and on. So you can't just go up to someone and say, I want to get into marketing, because that's super vague. you just don't know what to do with that information. You need to understand what part of marketing you are attracted to, what part of marketing do you think you would be good at, do you think you want to do for the rest of your life. And once you've narrowed it down, then you can start talking to people that, okay, this is what I think I want to do. What does your day to day look like? What are your challenges? What are your priorities? What are the skills that you use on a day to day basis? And after all of that, if you're still convinced that, marketing is the thing for you, then just take up an internship. Uh, Take up an internship or do your own side project. If you want to do content, start blogging. If you want to do social media, create your own brand presence, because that is a very realistic hands-on way for you to understand what marketing is going to look like. And even after all of this, if you feel like this is your thing, then just show transferable skills when you're interviewing.
That's great advice. I think internship and actually doing the work which you will be doing for the rest of your life, it's a good way to find out whether you are liking it or not.
Absolutely. Because, here's the thing, like we learn a lot about marketing, we learn a lot about finance from those subjects, but you yourself know that the reality is very, very different from what we learn.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking about reality and expectations,
Great
wow,
segue.
what was your expectations when you started your job? Like, did you have an idea of this is what it's going to look like? And was it very different from what you had expected?
For some context over here, the way I do lifecycle marketing at Borrowell requires a lot of email marketing, push notifications, the kind of stuff that I did earlier in my career when I was working in India. Now, the whole journeys piece is something that I picked up during the MBA. Now, when I combined both of these experiences together, that basically becomes my role as it stands today. So when I started this role, frankly, for the first 3 months, I thought that these guys made a mistake. I was like, I'm sure you did not hire the right person. Do you need me to go? Because I still can. All right. So I wasn't 100% sure about what I'm doing, but I was very, very open with my team, my manager, letting them know that, listen, I've not done this role before. You need to guide me. And frankly, everybody was great. So my expectation reality grid was pretty shaken because I didn't expect everybody to be so nice to me because I did not have the technical skills for it. By technical skills, I mean Salesforce Marketing Cloud. I'd never worked on that before. So the fact that everybody was patient, it just went a long way in me being where I am today. So I mean, my expectations were all shattered when I entered the role because I was expecting this, but I got this. So I can't complain. It's just been fabulous.
That's great. And then that seems like Borrowell is a fabulous company to work for.
It is like I humble brag, but this is one of the best places that I've worked with. The people are fabulous. The culture is very important, and this is my advice to anybody who's looking for a job. Just make sure wherever you're going, the culture is great because that is going to make or break your career. The fact that everybody is so supportive over here, everybody is really invested in your growth, it speaks volumes and it helps you want to do better, right? Like you feel like contributing more. So
Choose
definitely.
people, not salaries.
Yes, exactly. That's a fabulous way to put it. Just that's the way forward.
All right. And my last question to you, Simran, is what were your expectations and realities? You must have had an idea before coming to Canada, and it must have been a cultural shock. So what did you think life would be in Canada before you came to Canada, and how has reality surprised you?
Oh my God, this is so much trauma. Okay. Because moving to Canada, okay, you know that winters are going to be long. Everybody tells you that it's going to be cold. You don't realize how cold is until you're here in the middle of the day with -15 and wind blowing on your face. So that's like one expectation versus reality, which went horribly wrong. But on a more emotional side, when you move countries, you also move cultures. And I feel like the culture in India is a far more integrated and cohesive, versus here, it's slightly more individualistic. So you have to make sure that you are prioritizing yourself, your mental health, your workouts, your appetite, because nobody's going to do that for you here. You don't have your parents or your well-wishers or your colleagues who are, checking in on you like, okay, why haven't you eaten by now? Because you have to be that person for yourself. In a way that helps you become a lot more independent, and that's a great thing, but it can get a little lonely, it can get a little isolated. So you have to learn to reach out. And this is something that I was really bad at, because I've always had amazing people in my life who always reached out to me, and I never felt like I had to do the same. But when you come here, you realize that if you're feeling low, if you're feeling upset, you're going to be the one to reach out, because nobody's going to do that for you, because everybody is busy trying to figure out their life. And reality is, the people that you're surrounded with, they are also going through a similar journey, so they're like super busy, they are trying to figure out their jobs, they are trying to figure out where they want to go in life, and these are not easy decisions to make. So just make sure that you are keeping yourself in check when you move, because it is a big change and it takes some time to get over this change.
I also realize that I agree with everything that you've said, and what it truly means to be independent. I came to know when I came to Canada. You are like truly independent because you are on your own. Nobody is going to do anything for you.
Exactly. And can we talk about how exhausting it is to cook and then you eat in 5 minutes and then you have to clean? Like, who designed this? I don't understand this. It's exhausting. That I can tell you.
But you have no other way. You have to do it. So
Yeah, that's also true, but you get used to it. And if you find great flatmates and great roommates, that helps a lot.
that helps a lot.
Yeah.
It's, choose people, like we said earlier. Always choose
Yeah.
people wisely and take care of yourself.
Yeah, you really need to surround yourself with people over here, because it can get, a little lonely, especially during winters. What are those 4:30 p.m. sunsets? I don't feel like getting out of the house. My motto in winter is just to hibernate. Like, I don't see people in winter.
We're talking about 4:30, even 8:30 sunsets are weird.
Oh, I prefer those. I will
But,
definitely love a 9 p.m. sunset over a 4:30 p.m. one for sure.
yeah, obviously. But even that is weird. That's like a shock. Say you go out at 8:30 and the sun is out. You're like, what's wrong over here?
Exactly. And you realize that you didn't appreciate these little things about India when you were there. So
True.
consistent, right? The weather is consistent, the sunset is consistent. You're like, everything changes. And these kind of changes also take some getting used to. It's not easy. So yeah, prioritize yourself at every point you can.
Prioritize yourself. So I think that's a good note to end this conversation on. You mentioned earlier you used to write blogs and poetry. So if you could tell the name of your blog, maybe someone interested can follow you, read them.
Okay. So one thing that an MBA does to you is not give you any time. So it's been an eternity since I have written anything and I have posted it. So I have nothing to shout out over here. But what I can let anybody know is, if they want to talk more about my experience, if you want to just talk about marketing in general, or moving to Canada, or doing an MBA from Schulich. So you can always reach out to me on my LinkedIn, and then I'll be happy to have a conversation. That's it.
I will paste your LinkedIn profile in the description section.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much, Simran. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for your advice and your insights.
No, Raghav, this is my honor to be here. Frankly, this is such a wonderful initiative you're doing. It's so important to get all these voices out there, because everybody, all 60, 70 of us, we've gone through such individual journeys, but together, that everybody has a different experience. So if this helps somebody, I think that's just fabulous.
Thank you so much. You're very kind.
Definitely not. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I am tuning in every week and listening to all these podcasts.
Yeah, thank you. And on that note, to our listeners, please like, comment, and subscribe to the Harne
Definitely will do
podcast.
that.
All right. Thank you so much, Simran. You have a good day.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye.